It reminds me a bit like in WoW when they used to have paladins duel each other. It would just fight would go on forever. A group.
It was a group. Watch this shit.
I think you just broke my game.
Yeah.
You just crashed my fucking game, dude.
What is up, everybody? It's BionicTide. Welcome to another Diablo IV Druid guide. If you followed our level 1 to 50 guide for the Storm God, moved into our level 50 to tier 100 guide for Nightmare speedruns, and finally smashed Lilith with our tier 100 optimizations for low life, then congratulations, you now have all the tools you need to dominate the fields of hatred in PvP. But before we get started, if you could smash that like and subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Let's get into it. So, what does a good PvP build actually consist of? Well, you need three things. You need to be unstoppable as much as possible, because getting CC'd on the fields of hatred means you're dead. And then you need sustain, because without it, well, you're dead. And then you need a way to CC the enemy so that you can provide an opportunity to punish them during the gap and they're unstoppable. In this build, we're going to cover all of those things and how you can get them, why they're important. And don't worry if you haven't seen our previous guides, we'll catch you up to speed as much as we can here. I would still recommend that you go back and watch those. But let's jump into the skills and why they're important. First, we're going to use our Cataclysm. This not only gives us a chance to proc Petrify, which is another CC, but it does constant damage for a longer duration than Petrify. And each time it hits, that's another chance to proc Petrify, whereas Petrify only hits a few times for a shorter duration and doesn't give us many chances to capitalize on the Nature's Fury to proc Cataclysm. Nature's Fury is one of our passive abilities at the very end of our skill tree that allows one of our skills to proc another one of our skills, kind of like a free cast on opposite elements. And with Cataclysm here, it also allows us to use our Devious Heart, which is the exonerable force, and that's going to pull enemies in from all the way across the screen, and this includes other players in PvP, but also monsters that we can use to proc our Barber Heart to do insane damage to the whole area and get quick kills on any players that happen to be nearby. Now, with Cataclysm, we're going to also be dropping vulnerability on people, and that happens with one of our other passive abilities here, Elemental Exposure. And more vulnerability is better. It makes people's barriers crack and gives us a chance to shred all of their defenses really quickly if they're also using a similar build. Now, the next thing we have on here is Hurricane. We're taking Hurricane strictly for the defense. When you're using Hurricane, there is a 20% damage reduction to anyone, or against anyone rather, who's affected by a hurricane, which will come in big handy in PvP. And now here's where our build gets a little bit different than our tier 100 and our Nightmare dungeon builds, as well as a little bit different than our Lilith build. We're going to be using Bloodhowl and Poison Creeper instead of using Cyclone Armor. For tier 100, we like Cyclone Armor because it's just added extra defense. Against Lilith, we like Cyclone Armor because it gives us a chance to make her vulnerable, and more CC is better. And here in PvP, we're already getting those things in the extent that we're not going to need any more defense than what we already have. We should be invincible all the time. And we're not going to need to make our enemies vulnerable because we're already doing that with Cataclysm and Exploit and things like that. And what we want to do is take Poison Creeper, whereas usually we have one of these or the other one, depending on what content we're doing. We want to have both of them here because Poison Creeper is going to be our way to CC the enemy and open up opportunities to punish gaps in their Unstoppable. So again, we have Blood Howl because it's going to heal us and it's going to give us attack speed to keep shredding and keep our bulwark up. And then we have Poison Creeper to open up gaps in the enemy's CC rotate or anti-CC rotation and hopefully punish them. We're not doing a low life build here because low life in PvP is too punishable. We're going to try to keep our health as topped off as we can, but we can still use our low life armor so that if something happens and there is a gap in our rotation and our life does dip below the 35%, we can still have insane defense during that time to get our health back up with Howl and with our potions. Potions in PvP are more limited than they are in the regular game, and that's another reason that we're going to take Blood Howl and use that to heal ourselves, because it's a lot more sustain than just using potions. We can still use potions, but they are very limited in PvP. Claw we're going to use to reset our Bulwark as usual, and Bulwark we're going to use for both defense and offense. Now, in this build, we are going to be leaning a little bit more towards the Lilith side of how we gear ourselves with the low life setup, more barrier, and a whole lot of damage reduction while injured. And again, for the reasons I just listed, that damage reduction while injured might come in handy if we ever get jumped by too many people or goof something up and our life goes below 35%. Especially in PvP where not everything is going to instant kill you, you will have an opportunity to get your life back up if it drops below 35%. It's not like Nightmare Dungeons where, if you're not full, you're dead. There is a lot of wiggle room, and that's where our Blood Howl is going to really, really, really come in clutch and keep us healed. But having that extra defense is really, really, really nothing to scoff at. And that's pretty much the extent of this build. Now, there are some things you need to note and pay attention to when fighting enemy players. One is that if you're not using any skills directly on the player, you should still be using the skills by themselves. And what I mean by that is, see, I have my claw set to an actual hotkey, which you can do by going into the options menu, go to controls, and disable this combine, move, interact basic skill slot, and then set an actual skill slot for your basic skill. After you do that, by default, move is going to be bound to left button, but you want to move that over to move and interact because you still want to be able to open doors and boxes and things like that with your left click. That's one way to do it. The other way that you can do it, if you prefer to keep your left click as your claw, and this works in the dungeons too. I've tried to explain this to people for the Lilith fight. This is what I usually do in between the waves, so that I can get my shields back up and reset my bulwark without actually having to hit anyone. You can hold shift and left click, and you'll automatically use your basic skill no matter what slot you have it in. And I'll show you that right outside of town. Let me run over here, and I'll show you what I'm doing here so that you can see exactly how that works, because this seems to be overlooked by a lot of players. So all I'm doing is holding the shift button. You can see my cursor turns into a little sword, and then holding left click. And what this does is it stops you from moving while using your basic attack. But in our case, what it does is it allows us to start resetting the cooldowns of our bulwark, even without a target. Because remember, we don't need claw to hit anything. What we need is Nature's Fury to proc, which we get from using claw because of our cron staff, whatever you want to call it, turning our claw into a storm skill. And as you can see, every time one of those little earth pillars pops up, that's our claw using Storm Strike and then getting a Nature's Fury proc off of Storm Strike, which will reset our bulwark cooldowns. So I wanted to explain that a little bit because people seem to not grasp that concept fully from the Lilith fight videos or the tier 100 videos. Another thing I wanted to explain that seems to elude most people is where to find the text guide for those things. If you don't want to go back and watch those videos, definitely understandable, though you will be missing a lot of detail, but you just want the text guide. You can find it in our Discord at this address. I'm going to put it on screen now. And we have a section in there called Diablo Guides that has all of our videos and our text guides for all of these builds. In the text guides, you'll find notes, which will explain a little further in detail all the different ways you can use the builds, as well as any changes you need to make to go from one type of build to the other. For instance, this Druid build, you can use in tier 100, you can use it in Lilith, you can use it in PvP, but there are some changes you're going to want to make to the build as a whole. So I think that pretty much covers most of the things that you're going to need. Obviously, for PvP, you want to stick to your target as best as you can. If you find that you have a group of enemies, target the weakest ones first, anyone you see taking damage. A lot of players have full barrier builds just like we're using, but the difference is we don't need any of our spirit to sustain our build, whereas those builds are very dependent on lucky hits and will more than likely eventually run out of spirit and then leave themselves open to an absolutely crushing PvP counter. Try to keep all of your skills up as much as you possibly can, and when I'm running around in PvP, I tend to try to save my Cataclysm for when I actually see a player. Usually I'll just run around and grind monsters using the rest of my kit, and then use Cataclysm only when I see another player, and more importantly, when that player is trying to escape. Once they realize they can't win and they start trying to run away, we can use our Cataclysm to pull them back in from a distance, which usually surprises them and ends the fight pretty quickly. Another thing to remember is that in PvP, you can use certain potions, which are, I guess it's more of a scroll, that actually give you increased defense against incoming player damage. So if you're running into a big group of players, or for some reason you're not fully optimized on your gear and you get roughed up by a certain type of player, whenever you see them, you can pop one of these PvP scrolls, which will reduce all of your incoming player damage by quite a lot. And it's called the Scrolls of Tranquility. You can buy them with red dust in the PvP zones. And the Cursed Scroll of Tranquility decreases damage taken from players by 30%, but increases damage taken from monsters by the same amount. Monsters aren't really a big deal for us,
with the Triune about,
so we're not going to worry about that. But let me buy a couple of them and show you how to make them useful, because as they come, you're going to have to open up your menu, go to your consumables, right-click this when you see an enemy coming. It's just not very practical. So I'll show you how we can actually make this much more usable in combat. First thing you want to do, open your emote wheel, go to customize, and now you're going to see a few tabs at the top, and one of them looks like potions here. And in that slot, you're going to see all of your potions. This is how you can actually hotbar those as well, though you really don't need to because they last quite a long time. But what you want to do is scroll through those all the way down until you see your PvP items, which I think I passed it here, but you should see your Scroll of Tranquility, and you're going to want to equip that to one of your hotbar wheels. You can put it anywhere you want. There it is. It doesn't really matter where. I'm going to replace Inspect. No, I actually use that quite a lot. I'm going to replace Open Chat. You can put it anywhere in your wheel that you want. Save the changes. Now that your wheel has the scroll, that's a little bit more practical, but we can take it a step further. What I'm going to do is open up my options, go to the controls, and we're going to scroll all the way down until you see controls that actually look like your emote wheel. So there's the left, the right, the middle, and we can see, I have it on input too, but I'm going to move that. We can see the direction of the wheel. You just got to remember where you put it. I put it here, and boom. Now, when you empty, or when you exit out of there, and you open up your wheel, make sure you got it on the right one, you should see your mouse input or whatever button you put for the Scroll of Tranquility on your wheel, which means the second you see an enemy player incoming, you can immediately click that button and use the scroll instantly without having to open up any sub-menus or go to any mouse wheel emotes, nothing at all. Just click the button and boom, you use the scroll, and now you're protected. These only last for a few seconds, and they're only usable every 5 minutes. So try to use them at the most clutch moments you can. Maybe you use them in the beginning of a fight when you're about to engage, or when someone first engages you to buy you a few seconds to react. You could use them when your health is low, but if your health gets low, chances are our damage while injured is going to take in effect, and we're not really going to take any damage anyways. I would use them probably when you first notice another player, just to make sure that everything is ready to go and you have plenty of time to set up your PvP rotation. PvP rotation, again, really easy to do. We're just going to basically spam everything we got as fast as we can. But we're going to want to make sure, like fighting in tier 100s or fighting against Lilith, that our main focus is our claw and our bulwark. Once you are in the fields of hatred, another thing that I notice people don't do right away is flag up for PvP. Open your emote wheel, and somewhere on there you should have mark for blood. You need to turn that on if you're in the PvP zone. It isn't just so that you can become the aggressor, it's so that you can act first, because you don't want to run over and try to beat someone up without that on and do no damage and waste all of your skills just to have them turn theirs on and immediately beat you up. So make sure that that's on so that you can do damage to other players without having to wait for them to do damage to you first. Once you have the mark active in your blood mark, you're not going to be able to turn it off by clicking it again, and you're not going to be able to join parties or do anything like that with it on without the party accepting it. So what you want to do is go into a PvP town, find one of these altars of cleansing, and click on that to get rid of it. Now you can join parties like normal, you can turn it back on, turn it off, so forth. And the other things I would note is once you have a lot of red dust, go to one of the altars that are marked on the map and turn it in. This makes it permanent, no one can take it away from you. There's no reason not to do it. Because the more you hold on to, the more you can lose if you die. I don't know how many times I kill someone in PvP and the guy drops 100,000 red dust. Don't run around with that much on you. There's no reason for it. Go to an altar, get rid of it, and be done. You can farm red dust on lower tiers if you want to switch your world tier to world tier 3 or 2 and just farm red dust. What I recommend doing is using the rotation of these world events in this bottom corner. because then you can also kill the seething abomination who spawns in this bottom corner. And those all drop plenty of red seeds on lower world tiers, which will get you lots of red dust without even having to PvP. But if you're on world tier 4 and you're PvPing and you get a lot of red seeds, or even on the lower world tiers, I guess, hit those altars often, because you don't want someone like me to run up and catch you unsuspecting and take all of your seeds. So I hope that helps, guys. We'll show a little bit of a PvP montage at the end here. Oh, I guess there's great example. I'll show you that too. If you ever see that message pop up on your screen, it means that someone is using the ritual, and there's a good chance if you kill them there that they'll drop a whole lot of seeds, and you'll be able to make bank without actually having to, you know, farm the seeds yourself. If they're smart, they'll do what he did, and they'll use one of the far altars. Even if I run out of town on my horse now, there's a good chance that I'm not going to get there before he finishes. Now this guy, however, he did kind of mess up by going to that middle altar, and we could probably catch him if we really wanted to. But it's early morning. We're going to let him get away with it. Because, you know, a lot of people are just trying to farm just to have fun and get all their PvP accomplishments out of the way. And I say we'll let him get away with it, but maybe we won't. Maybe we go out and say hello. Give you guys a real world example of how quick this can happen here for you. Here we have a Necro. They can do pretty good damage, but as you can see, nothing stops the PvP build. Hope that helped, guys. If you want to check out my other guides, they'll provide a lot more insight on how exactly this guide works and all of the skills that are included with it, as well as lots of other ways that you can use it, including tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon speed runs and how to beat Lilith with it. Check out my Twitch if you want free carries for Lilith and for tier 100s. We do them most weekends, but there's also always people willing to help in the Discord, so definitely check that out. Again, go to the Discord if you want to find the text guides. I know you're going to ask for it in the comments anyways, but go to the Discord for the text guides to all these builds and more. There's a lot more useful information in there. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know in the comments if there's any other content that you want to see. I have been thinking about putting together some build guides for Armored Core and some other games. So let me know what you want to see. And peace. Say I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Comment too if you want to. Until next time, take it easy. You still here, huh? You lost? Oh, I know. You're looking for the website because you wanted some artwork. It's right up at the very top of the page there. No, that wasn't it. Maybe you're looking for the Twitch website. Okay, it's going to be over on the right. The video might have popped up by now, so you might have to rewind. That wasn't it either. Listen, I'm not really sure how to help you. Why don't you join the Discord, rewind the video, and you'll see it right behind the pop-up.